Another place that I see owners get stuck in QuickBooks is rules. So let's say that all of these 3 transactions were all Amazon and I was hitting add, add, add. QuickBooks, to be helpful, says, we see that you're making a lot of ads to Amazon for office supplies. Do you want to make a rule? And most people, when I'm working with them and I see this come up, I can tell that they immediately want to put yes. And rules are an amazing way to save time. I use them within my business. I probably have 50 to 100 rules within my own business. But here are some things to be careful of, and then we're going to go into rules and look at how to make a rule and then how to remove or change a rule. So one thing I want you to think about when you're thinking about rules is, does this apply every single time? So let's say you always get gas at Arco. So you go in and you say, yes, every time Arco is fuel for my vehicle. So categorize, make this rule to say, Arco, fuel for my vehicle. But what if a few times a month you run into Arco for snacks, you run in for sodas or protein bars or whatever, and that transaction is a small transaction, but it's not for fuel. So that's where you have to be careful with rules, because that doesn't mean it's happening every time. So you can set a rule that says, make Arco fuel if it's over $60. So make sure that you're thinking about the rules before you make them. Now, there's a lot of things that definitely warrant a rule. So maybe you work with a specific vendor and that's always equipment rental. That would be a good time to make that rule. So let's take a look at if this is a received one, so this is not a good example here. But let's say Laura's Lamination was always shipping and postage. We knew every single time that Laura's Lamination was always going to be the same type of account. So it was going to be this category called stationery and printing. And no matter what, Laura's Lamination was always this. So we would put Laura's Lamination here, and we would make sure that this is exactly how we want it. And then once we create this vendor, we are going to go in right here in the banking feed and actually create the rule. So we will hit create a rule, and now the rule is going to pop up. And it's going to say, what do you want to name this rule? This has to be something that when you go in to look at all of the rules you have, it immediately rings a bell. So don't name it just something simple like Laura. I would name this something like Laura's Lamination, and I would probably call it the stationery and printing. I would make it so that I really knew what it was. And if your business is small and you're thinking, I don't need that much detail, your business is likely going to grow. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything correctly from the get-go. So now it wants to know, is this only to money going out? Is it only on the MasterCard? Is this for all of your bank accounts or just your checking or savings? So this gives you the opportunity to really think through those rules and then include the following. If the description contains Laura's Lamination. So this lets you set different conditions, the bank text, the amount, and you can add additional conditions. And that's where we talked about the fuel, where you would say here, the bank text contains Arco and the amount. So let's try it out here. We would say this amount is greater than $60. So I'll remove that here. It doesn't apply, but you can set multiple conditions and you can test your rule. You can hit test the rule and let me know where that's applying to. Then QuickBooks wants to know, where do you assign this? So I'm going to assign this to an expense, stationery and printing, the payee, the customer. So the payee is going to be Laura's Lamination here. And then any tags if you're using tags. Now it wants to know, do you want to auto add it? If you choose to auto add, you're never going to see this transaction hit your banking feed. The minute it hits, it's automatically being categorized. You don't have the opportunity to look at it. For a lot of people, this saves a lot of time. Myself, I'm a complete control freak, so I toggle this off. So it's going to hit my banking feed. It's going to show as a rule, but then I like to look at it and just make sure that it's perfect. Probably a waste of time with rules for me, but that's just how I operate. So you have to decide what works for you. So you can go ahead and hit auto add and hit save. And we are going to go in and look at the rules. So this, because it's a dummy account, should only probably have this one rule in there. So you'll see here, you can go to rules and look at all of the rules that you have. And again, you're going to see what's the rule name? What card does it apply to? All your checking or savings, your MasterCard, what are their conditions? And then you can look at all of the different things that apply to that rule. Is this getting auto added, which we said that it was? And then you can edit the rule. You can actually go in and change the rule. So maybe Laura's lamination, Laura changes it and it becomes Laura and Sally's lamination. You can change things within the rule. You can also choose to disable the rule or delete the rule altogether. So you do that right here where you're going to pick delete or disable. But ideally, once you get going with your books, you're probably going to have dozens and dozens of rules in here that make your life easier in QuickBooks. So go ahead, don't be afraid to use rules, and make sure that when you are using rules that you're thinking through them so that QuickBooks isn't categorizing things improperly. That's the mistake that I see, that QuickBooks is grabbing things and putting things in the wrong place. So use rules, but think through them. And if you need to make changes, come into this rules, go into edit. Again, you can disable, you can delete, you can edit the rule to make any changes that you need, but make sure that the rules are correct.